It's awesome to be with you guys. We'll see if the clicker works. Haha, it does. Don't worry, I'm on it. I'm on it. No, it's great to be with you guys. Hopefully, I don't yawn too much. I'm a bit tired. I've had a big week. Friday night, our youth group went to White Hill Church of Christ to do a combined youth night at, for Church of Christ for like one of their youth camps that they do. Around 230 kids. Our kids went in. They had fun. I had to preach, and that was really fun. I think I embarrassed my son in front of 230 kids, so that was really good. Put up a baby photo, and I made everyone say "aw" to it because it is the cutest baby photo ever. And he hated me for it, so it's good. But then last night, I had a friend because I used to compete in mixed martial arts, so I would put on little 4-ounce gloves and punch and kick and cuddle people. It was my pastime. I got paid to do it. It was so much fun. But now I'm coaching, and I had someone who was competing last night in their first fight and had to corner them, and they got the win. It was really great. I'm going to really struggle giving this message because, at every events like that, they have like an MC, right, in the middle. This MC was, he was not the best. We'll leave it at that. And he had a saying, right? Everyone wants a saying. Like, Bruce Buffer, have you ever seen the big boxing fights? He goes, "Let's get ready to rumble." And this guy, his saying was, "Let the leather fly." And that's all I got stuck in my head right now. So hopefully if that blurts out now, you know why. But it's awesome to share with you guys. And we're starting a new series called Heaven, Here, and Now. And I'm really excited about this series because we're going to dive into lots of different things. But really, we're going to dive into the fact that we can have heaven here on earth. And we can help cultivate that by the way we live, by the way we follow God. In the same way, we can have hell on earth. And I'm sure we've all had those experiences where we feel like we're in the middle of the fire. And we're going to look at that. Because I think sometimes in Christianity, we seem to just think of heaven as this, because there is something after. So please hear me, there is that, but there's stuff here too. And I think sometimes as Christians, we just go through life waiting for our ticket to heaven. We keep our head low, we do what we need to do, we tick the boxes, and then one day it will kind of be like Star Trek. You look up and you go, "Beam me up, Jesus," and then boop, you're there. But that's not the way Jesus kind of taught it. Jesus was again and again in his ministry talking about bringing the kingdom of God here on earth. We see it in the Lord's Prayer. We see it throughout Scripture, and I think we've missed that a little bit as Christians. So this whole series, that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to dive into heaven here now, and how do we help cultivate heaven here now? What does that look like? And now, for those of you who don't know me that well, I have 3 amazing kids. You can see them there. You see Gideon, all excited because I gave him a bag of Skittles. I told him they could count out 20, which was really impressive that they did it because they had the big bucket of Skittles to count from. You see Esther having a blast, and you see teenage Caleb being a teenager. You guys all know what teenagers are like. But I love my kids. And I mess up as a dad. I don't get it right sometimes, but I love being a parent. And I love all the little things that will come up. I love how Gideon will get so excited and full of energy and want to play handball, or will be going on and on again about Nerf gun bullets because he ran out. I love how Esther is 5 and she's about to lose her first tooth. So every time I see her, she wiggles her tooth. But I'm not allowed to wiggle it anymore because I wiggle it too hard, apparently. And I love Caleb. I love seeing him grow up, become a young man. It's awesome, and it's a privilege, and it's an honor. But one thing with kids that I've learned is kids are really messy. And my kids were no different. They were very messy. And I didn't want to embarrass them because I embarrassed them enough. So I got some photos of other kids. So here's a little boy eating some spaghetti. And I'm sure we've all had an experience like that, right? If we've been around little kids, you give them some food, it's like more goes around the mouth than in, and they make artwork with it, but apparently it's good, and then somehow the fork gets thrown across the kitchen, and they're putting hands in, and it just gets crazy. But we all know that feeling when they're little, right? We also know this one. This is my mud/poop baby, as I like to call it. Because you think it's mud, but I think parents know you can't be too safe, right? I'm sure we all made the mistake thinking it's mud, and then we're like, yeah, that's not mud. But kids are messy when they're little. And I guess I thought one day, they'd be clean. They wouldn't be as messy. I thought when they became teenagers, life would be easy. And then I discovered this. This is a teenager's room. Oh, that messiness. But I got to admit something. As a parent, I sometimes get scared of mess. Because I think in our bones, sometimes we think unclean will spread. So unclean spreads. We seem to have this idea that it's always going to spread, which is true in some cases. Like if I have a kid that just, a little baby, let's say Caleb used to play with his food all the time, and it's all over his face and all over his clothes. Of course, when I clean that up, I might get a little bit messy. Or when my kids just jumped in a muddy puddle with a pooey nappy, and it's just a big, it's a disaster zone. Of course, I'm going to get a little bit messy. But it kind of doesn't make sense when it comes to my teenager's room, right? Like if I walk in there and I find apple cores hidden in the most crazy of spots, it doesn't mean those apple cores are going to magically attach to me and then go hide themselves in my room. So in some ways, it's true that uncleanness spreads, but in some ways it's not. And this is something in Jewish culture, they really believed in this idea that unclean spreads. There's an honor and shame culture that they have. So much so that if you want to bore yourself, read the books of like Leviticus and stuff with the rules and regulations and what a priest has to do before he can go into the Holy of Holies. It is, oh my goodness. If they touched a dead body, they had to go through this big rigmarole for a week. So they had this in their culture, so much to the point that if you had leprosy, does anyone know what leprosy is here? I'm pretty sure, right? All right. So let's say someone in your family gets leprosy. That person's not in your family anymore. They're exiled. You don't help them. You don't give them food. You don't go near them. They're not invited to family dinners. They're not invited to the good parts of town. And this is how this culture was. And in Mark chapter 1, verse 40 to 45, we read of an amazing story where Jesus does the unthinkable, which challenges this honor and shame culture, which kind of flips it on its head. But before we dive into that, I'm one who likes context. So I want to give you a little bit of context of what's happened so far in Mark's gospel, which, hands down, you want an action-packed gospel that's easy to read, go to Mark. That's just boom, boom, it's punching. But Mark, right before this, in verses 29 to 34, you read of Jesus heals many at Simon's house. I always find it funny in the Bible, they didn't need to change, go to court to change their name or do paperwork. People just change their name randomly. So Simon later on gets called Peter. So, I guess back then you can just change your name. So they did that. So you had Simon's house where all this healing happens, where people are coming everywhere in the city. They're barely getting in the door. And this amazing healing is happening. Jesus is doing amazing stuff. We're hoping God moves on Wednesday when we do our praise and worship. And I believe that God will. But at this moment in the story of Mark, God is moving. Anyone who's come to him, crippled, doesn't matter what, they're getting healed. And it's this massive thing going on in the house. And after this event, we have Jesus. He goes MIA before a preaching tour, as I like to call it. So after this awesome night in Simon's house, Jesus goes missing in the morning, so much so the disciples are panicked. They're like, where's Jesus? There's a pile-up, there's a queue ready for day 2 of, healing ministry of Jesus. They're ready for it. And they're panicking about where he is. So they track him down, and he's kind of just hiding out, and they're like, Jesus, come on, we got to get back. What are you doing? There's people waiting. Jesus, and this is what I love about Jesus. You think he's going to do one thing, he always does the opposite. He goes, no, let's go to the next town. And then we read of him kind of going on this preaching tour where he's going into synagogues, and he's just amazing people again and again and again. And after this awesome preaching tour, we hear of Jesus having this amazing encounter. And I think this is a big deal. This encounter that we read about in Mark chapter 1, verse 40 to 45. I think sometimes we skip over it, but I think this is really important. And I want to read this with you guys now. And this is what we read. A man with a skin disease, a.k.a. leprosy, came to him, begging him and kneeling, and he said to him, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I am willing, be made clean. Immediately the skin disease left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them. But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. Man, I love that story. I got to say, I relate with the guy with leprosy. Like, the minute Jesus tells him not to do it, I'm one of the people, you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it. That's why I hate getting my driver's license photo, because I always sit down and they go, don't smile. And I'm like, oh, why should I say something? Now I just want to smile. So I can understand this guy. And plus, I can understand, like, imagine if you're a leper. You've been exiled from your family, from your loved one. Who knows how many years he hasn't seen them. And now you're clean? And someone's telling you to keep it quiet? Man, that would be hard. You'd want to tell everyone. But something that we miss in this story, because I think we get caught up, not in a bad way, we get caught up with this amazing healing that Jesus does. We get caught up in this man's genuine response. But we miss something, that Jesus reaches out before he is made clean. And I think that's important. I think it's important that Mark put it in there for us, because it's a big deal in Jewish culture. You weren't meant to touch the unclean. You couldn't reach out to them. The lepers were meant to be exiled. Once they went through the customs and they were clean, oh, then you can touch them. But not before. But what does Jesus do? He reaches out and touches them before he even speaks. Which I think is amazing. And I think it's something Jesus does for each one of us. He reaches out to us. So you see a really cool picture of a teenage boy there. That's me, if you couldn't tell. I look really cool, right, with that headband. But I'm so glad Jesus reaches out to us, because he doesn't care about the mess. He doesn't care about what we've been doing. He just reaches out to us. Yeah, the healing will come, because if we sit with Jesus long enough, of course, that's going to bring healing. God's going to fall afresh. But Jesus reaches out. He doesn't care about the mess. He didn't care about the mess when I was a teenage kid and I was an idiot. I still am a little bit of an idiot sometimes. I'm not smooth. You should have seen it at this youth thing. They told me to come up smooth, right? Like, it's like Pentecostal. So they're like, come up the stage on the side, and they wanted me to like sneak up and come with a microphone and, you know, wait for the cue. And I missed all of that. Made the worship leader do it. And then I got up there and then I called out the guy running it saying, look, I'm here. So I'm a mess. Heck, even in this photo, right? You see that little burn mark on my forehead? You're like, oh man, there might be a cool story with that. There's not. I fell asleep on the bus and my head was bouncing like that. So I got carpet burn. Uh, and the reason this photo is even here is one of my friends took it and said, carpet burned from sleeping on the bus. Ha, ha, ha. So now he got that photo. But I was a mess. But Jesus didn't care. He reached out. He doesn't care that I'm a bit awkward, that I get stuff wrong, that I sometimes speak without thinking. He reaches out anyways to me. And he does the same to you. And I think this is amazing. So I hope we've all had an experience here where Jesus has reached out to us. Those moments in our lives. And if you haven't, I'd love to pray for you because I know Jesus is waiting to reach out. But what I love about this is I think we're meant to follow this example. I think this is a part of how we can bring heaven here and now by shifting the paradigm in our communities. Now, if you haven't heard shifting the paradigm means a fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. And I think we can do some pretty big stuff if we shift the paradigm. I think it will really help bring heaven here and now. Because I don't know about you guys, but has anyone been in high school before? Was that a thing back when you were alive, Steve? Was that a thing? Was it? Okay, cool, it was. Good. I'm joking. I know it was. Don't beat me up. But in high school, right? I think it's the same in the world, but high school is just such a microorganism of the world, right? If you go to a public high school. But we all remember the kids you didn't hang out with. We all had it. No matter what group we were in, there was another group that was dirty, that was unclean, that you didn't talk to, that you picked on for no reason. And I'm not perfect. I fell into this trap. There was a kid, and I wish I could apologize to him, but he was this big African boy. He had some learning difficulties. He had acne all over his face. And he wasn't in the cool group. So I picked on him a lot, even though I only came up to his chest. I mean, one time he put me in a trash can, but then all my friends had my back, so. But, I probably deserved it. But I used to pick on him. And there was no good reason. There was no good reason. It was because he was different. Because I thought he was dirty, because he looked different, he talked funny, so I picked on him. Even when he will get changed at PE, because that's what you have to do in the States. You get changed for PE. That's how you get your grade. You just got to remember to bring shorts and a shirt, and then they'll give you an A. And Steve knows I'm right. They get you to play dodgeball. It's the best. But I would even pick on him when he was changing. Not even doing anything to me. I would run up to him and go, "Oh, no, it's Godzilla." And then he would go, "Hey, stop." And I would just keep going. And looking back at that, I feel awful. When I realized the whole reason I did it is because I didn't think he was clean. I thought he was unclean. He was dirty. I was better than him. So I had a right to pick on him. And I think this is something that stays with our society. I think even to this day, there's people that we say are unclean that we don't go near. That if we see them walking down the street, we might step to the other side if we can. Now, I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad. I'm just pointing out something that I've been noticing. I mean, have we ever sat back as churches and realized that church is meant to be for the broken? That's what Jesus said. Give me you're tired, you're weary, you're broken. When we look around in churches, Do we see the tired and broken in our society? There's something that we're getting wrong. Part of bringing heaven to earth is reaching out to those that are marginalized, those that are different. Because, as Trevor pointed out in communion, God's all about reconciliation. He wants his kids back. Even the ones that are a bit stinky and weird, like myself, he still wants them back. And we're meant to be reaching out. We should be reaching out so much that it's hard for people to tell us apart by the end, because we're both transforming each other. And I don't know where you guys are at this morning, but I would love to see a world that's different. I would love to challenge myself even, because I'm not perfect. And there's been times I've seen people sitting on a bench in town and they look, it's going to sound really bad, but I'm sure we've all done it here. I'll just be honest, but you look at them and they just look like they're homeless, or they might be drunk, or they have something going on, right? And let's say the bench is like here, and you're walking, and you're going to walk right past them. But instead of walking past them, you just kind of take a little step a bit further, and you see them try to reach out and say something, and you look out. Or if you have your phone on you, you get your phone out, and you pretend you're talking to someone. Yeah. I'm hoping that we can stop that kind of stuff. I'm hoping that we can bring heaven to earth by reaching out like Jesus does. But if we got time and we're not rushed, we can sit with a person. We can get to know them. We can reach out to them. Because heaven is meant to be filled with all of God's children. The ones that have everything right and the ones that don't, it doesn't matter. God doesn't care about that. And I would love to follow Jesus' example of reaching out to those, the other, the marginalized. And this doesn't mean you have to agree with them. I'm sure we all have friends that think completely different to us, right? On religion, on different stuff, but you can still be their friend. You can still sow love. If I see a trans kid that's struggling, I can still support a trans kid without us agreeing about that topic. And that's what we need to start doing, church. That's what Jesus did. And I think that's how we bring heaven to earth, by doing that, by following that example. And the band's going to come back up and lead us in a song. And as they make their way back up, I'm just going to close in prayer. God, I thank you so much for who you are. I thank you for your love and for your grace. I thank you that you reach out to us regardless of the mess, regardless of the stuff we're going through, regardless of the things we fall short in. You reach out anyways. I thank you so much that you long for reconciliation. I pray that you'll help us reach out to others, to the marginalized, to the people that are different to us. Help us reach out. Help us bring heaven to earth by reaching out to all of your children and showing your amazing love. And I pray for each one of us, if we're here and we're just needing to feel you reach out to us again, that you'll do that. That you'll do something in our life that we can't deny isn't you. And I thank you so much for the times that you continue to do that for me. And I pray that you do it for everyone here, so we can go and reach out like you do to us. In your name, amen.